Hello and welcome back to Sustainable is the New Black. Episode 2. It is episode 2. What do you mean? I'm releasing a second episode of a podcast series. I have to kind of not scream really loudly because my flatmate's asleep. That's usually me, but we gotta get up and tell the people about what is happening in the confectionery industry. And if you don't know what confectionery means, it's just a fancy word for sweets. If you're a reoccurring listener, thank you, love you. And if you're new to the podcast, let me introduce you. Sustainable is the New Black is a podcast where I look into successful, sustainable businesses. And the reason why I want to do that is because we need more businesses conducting business responsibly. And that's what I mean by sustainable. And I look into businesses through a 3-pillar foundation that I've come up with. That in order to be a sustainable business, you need to have sustainability as one of your foundations, you need branding, and you need a quality product. And the product itself needs to be strong enough that you would want to buy it without knowing that it was sustainable, because we need more people shopping from sustainable brands, switching from their usual shoes, their usual mascara, their usual sweets, and switching over to sustainably sourced products. And for a lot of people, they're not interested in the sustainability aspect, so we need to ensure that they are happy with the product, that the product sells them without sustainability having to sell them, because for some people, a lot of people, it doesn't sell them enough, it's not a strong enough sell. So I will be looking into businesses, what are their sustainability credentials, what's their branding positioning, and what is their product and their product quality. And the reason why I'm looking into more than just sustainability on this Sustainable podcast is because I want to know what other reasons this business is successful. I've seen far too many purely sustainable businesses crash out, and that's usually just because they've gone all in on sustainability. And I want to know cases where that hasn't been the case, and is the reason because their branding isn't just about sustainability. It's got more to it, which encourages a wider audience that have different purposes for buying the brand or buying the product. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about candy kittens. Now, if you don't know who candy kittens are, they are a vegan sweet brand made for adults. They're an adult sweet brand, and it was founded by Jamie Lang and Ed Williams. You might have heard of Jamie Lang. He surfaced on social media for starting a podcast with his wife, Sophie Habu, where they spoke about what it was like to get married and the long process, and talking about relationships and being really honest about their journey. And it was funny and raw and engaging. A Radio 2 broadcaster, but in 2012, him and his friend Ed Williams founded Candy Kittens. And now Candy Kittens was set out to disrupt the confectionery industry that was predominantly harmful to the environment, but also contained horrible ingredients that no one really knew what they were and what they were doing to our bodies. And so Candy Kittens was co-founded by Jamie Lang and Ed Williams, and it was to disrupt the sweet industry, to make sweets specifically for adults that contain no nasty ingredients, or no nasties as they call it. Strikingly, they're also the first Corp B sweet brand in the UK. That's a really crazy claim to make, and really amazing achievement. In 2023, their most recent impact report, which is also a sustainability report, they're the same sort of thing, but they talk about more than just sustainability on there, so that's why they call it the impact report. They talk all about their journey, so I'm going to take you through their journey. Start the first analysis, we're going to look into their sustainability, and then we'll look into their branding, and then we'll look into their product. So, their impact report. They really stand by this whole better is possible position, so they're committed to improving their impact on the planet, and in 2023 was a big year and moving closer towards a future that is all good. So this is their timeline. 2012 they were founded, and in 2018 they became plant-based, removing all gelatin from their products. And in 2020 they moved to a mono-material pouch to ensure that they were able to be recycled, so they with other plastic bags that we can go and recycle at supermarkets. You know, when you see on the back of plastic bags, it usually has that green label and it says recycle at supermarkets. That's the material that we're talking about. And in 2021, they changed their last remaining vegetarian product, which was the Eaten Mess, which contained beeswax, to a purely vegan recipe. So therefore, by 2021, they ensured that their entire range was vegan. And then in January 2022, they became climate neutral, which again doesn't mean that they're not emitting any carbon. It just means that they're offsetting their emissions by investing in other green, environmentally conscious projects around the world. I also say that they partnered with an organisation called Climate Partner to help look at their scope 1 to 3 emissions. Essentially, it's scope 1 is what are they doing in their offices, what emissions are occurring from their immediate domestic impact, and then scope 2 to 3, just to simplify it, is more about their supply chain, like what's the impact of their factories, how much renewable energy are the factories using, what carbon saving techniques could they be using to make the sweets, to make the packaging, that kind of thing. And transportation, like are you shipping it back or are you flying it back, that sort of thing. Really exciting, in October of 2022 they became the first Corp B sweet brand in the UK. So to become Corp B certified, send in your information to meet the criteria and then you get a score out of 100, and they got 86.5 out of 100, which is a pretty high score. In order to be Corp B certified, you have to hit 5 different criteria. In their impact report, they have it written out saying here's the 5 criteria, here's our score, and here's what we did to get the score, and here are our goals for the future. So for governance, they got 17.58 out of 20, which is really good. And one of their reasonings was in 2024, so this was written in 2023, so this was for last year, but it's just how the financial year works for impact reports. And they said everyone will have social and environmental objectives to ensure decisions are made with sustainability at the heart. And that's because they launched their No Nasties All Good manifesto. So that's really impressive, because it's like, even if you're the social media manager, or if you're the finance manager, an environmental objective, which is to make sure that genuinely sustainability is considered at every stage in the company, which I think is really, really impressive. Surprised that it's under governance, but we'll take it. For their workers, they scored 27 out of 37, which is high. And it says, we pay all of our team members above the living wage and look after well-being with a range of incredible benefits, including quarterly team getaways, private healthcare, free team lunches, and monthly wellness activities. And whilst that is a really high score, I'm still surprised because they don't talk about their supply chain. Like, what about your suppliers that are making the product? You don't hear about that. Maybe they submitted it, but they didn't mention it on here, so just interested that it was solely about their immediate workers and not their supply chain workers. But still a really impressive resume. Community is the third impact, and they scored 16 out of 36, so slightly lower. And they say, we use our product for good by donating a proportion of sales to various charities, and we offer to match any charitable donations that the team raise individually. Our supplier code of conduct ensures that current and new suppliers meet our No Nasties All Good standards. And again, that's not super clear on what that means. Does that just mean they're making sure that the suppliers don't source non-vegan products? What does all good mean? I understand it from a branding position in terms of literally the product doesn't have any meat and doesn't have any palm oil, but what about the suppliers? Like, it's just not majorly clear, hence probably why it's scored a 16 out of 36, which again is still high. It's just obviously room for improvement. Number 4 is the environment, and they scored 20 out of 44, and their biggest reasoning for this is they've worked hard to reduce their carbon impact by 3% from 2022. And you might think that 3% sounds quite small, but you also have to understand that their product itself is a lower carbon product because it's plant-based, because plant-based ingredients have a much lower carbon impact than meat, than animal products. So already it's low, and now they're working on how to make it lower. And I'll talk more about that in a minute because it's quite impressive how they've done that. And then the last one is customers. It's a 3 out of 5. And they say, we ensure all of our suppliers are audited on a regular basis to maintain the highest quality standards. Which seems odd that it's customers at that point where they talk about it. Really strange, because you would have just assumed that that was the people buying the products. Why is that customers then? I think that's really strange. This is making me want to go look more into being a corp brand. And then they say, which is more relevant, we put in place a robust customer service process to ensure customers can speak to us easily and find out about candy kittens or share any feedback. And that is true. On their report and on their sustainability page, they literally put email us at Candy Kittens because if you have any ideas or any tips on how we could improve and stuff, which is, I think, is quite nice. It's engaging with the community, being like, we know that sustainability must be something that you're passionate about in order to shop from us. Please share any tips that we might not know. Okay. So that's their Corp B. So I'm going to talk about their carbon impact right now. And so like I mentioned in their Corp B report, they have reduced their carbon footprint by 3% in 2022. And in the report, they explained that they removed 25% of their plastic material within their 140 gram pouches. So they made the pouches smaller. And that alone cut carbon by 80 tonnes. 80 tonnes, as well as a 42% in savings in logistics. Did it impact their carbon footprint in terms of reducing the amount of plastic needed for each pouch, which directly affects how much plastic is needed and new resources are needed per product. So that shrinks the impact there, but also because they're now smaller, they can improve their efficiency in terms of logistics, so they don't need as much room on transportation, like on boats, planes, lorries, because now you can get far more on there because there's less packaging to take up space. Efficiency in transportation means less oils required, less fuels required. So what's also interesting with their carbon, on their impact report, they say the size of their carbon footprint, which is 1,230 tonnes of CO2. And just to put that into perspective, they say they cut 80 tonnes from their carbon footprint the year before. So, 80 tonnes is a lot, but it's a lot more to go, a lot more to do. But I think it's really brave to put that out there because you hardly ever see that. And then they sort of do a breakdown. They said they worked out, so again, this is the scope 1 to 3 emissions. They say that only 2% of that total of the carbon footprint is from the corporate emissions, which they admit is tiny, but was a 12% reduction in 2023 compared to 2022. So although it's small, they are still working on reducing it. The driver in the reduction was encouraging employees to commute with more public transportation, which is interesting. They're based in London, but they understand that the majority of their total carbon footprint comes from the supply chain, and that's why they offset all their carbon that they produce through investments in global environmental projects with the climate partner, like I've mentioned earlier. Their goal for 2024 is to actually remove the carbon instead of offset it and have a more direct impact. The thing is it's really hard to separate carbon from packaging and carbon from the supply chain, because carbon is woven within both the supply chain and the product itself. So we're just going to keep talking about carbon, and to be honest, it's a lot of it in this case, but they mainly talk about it from the packaging perspective rather than the product, which is the sweets. So they said over the past 12 months, they've tested paper as an alternative, but found that plastic was best, which is tough. The reason being, our sweets are difficult to store in paper as it impacts the flavour and appearance. To ensure our sweets remain as fresh as possible, the paper would need a plastic barrier. This plastic barrier would mean the products cannot be recycled, which is why for now we continue to use plastic packaging. See, I think it's really important to explain yourself, because if you just saw, they're like, oh, you're a sustainable brand but you're using plastic. Okay, bet. Okay, heard you were sustainable. But then to actually explain why, and you're like, oh, okay. And that's just the difference of just being transparent. Being transparent and you're suddenly on the side of them because you've let them know what the issue is, you acknowledge that it's an issue, and here's what we're doing to overcome it. You know what I mean? It's just nice. They said, we're excited by the recent news from the government that by March 2027, the flexible plastic that our pouches are made from can be recycled at home, making it a lot easier for everyone to recycle. Big step towards our ambition of ensuring every pack is recycled. We'll be sure to keep you in the loop as this changes and goes live. And then they say you can always ask us any questions or share any ideas with us at their email. They did say, as part of our commitment to do better, we have a live project looking at alternative materials for our pouches to move away from virgin plastic. When we have an update on this, you'll be the first to know. It shows you that they're not giving up, that there's an ongoing project to continuously look into other materials that they could be using. They have the plastic pouches that the sweets come in. They also have jars, and they're not out of glass. They're moved to recycled plastic called rPET, which is recycled polythene terephthalate. Terephthalate. Anyway, so rPET, and it's made from recycled post-consumer plastic waste, which has a lower carbon footprint compared to the production of virgin plastic, making it kinder to the planet. I kind of want to know a little bit more about that, because it's not their fault, but there's a real monopoly on recycled plastic bottles at the moment, to the point where there's such a dependency for it and a move towards it that there are companies that are just making plastic bottles without putting water in them, so then they can be recycled into a recycled polyester, into a recycled plastic, so a recycled rPET. So sustainably minded businesses will buy it as a resource to then claim that they're being responsibly sourced and sustainably sourced. However, like, they might not know this. Their goal is, right, we need recycled materials, let's go find recycled rPET, but they don't know actually how transparent the supply chain is behind that. And that might not be the case. They might know exactly what company is supplying them. They've seen the recycled bottles in action. But again, that's just a bit of transparency that I'd like to see, and that they are working towards their B Corp recertification in 2025. And they're really excited about it because 2024 will be the first year with their No Nasties All Good manifesto act as their guiding principle, which is really nice. So that's sort of suggesting that, like, they will be fully, everything they do will be in line with their manifesto. No nasty ingredients, all good. And I think they need to be a little bit more open about what it means to be all good, and I'm sure they have that manifesto. I think it'd be really cool to share the manifesto on their impact report, or to share it on their sustainability report. Again, just to add that little bit of transparency and to know exactly what standards Candy Kittens are holding for their domestic employees and their international supply chain employees. Towards the end of their impact report, they talk about goals and sustainability fall within their products. And the two goals where it mentions sustainability is that they're making improvements to their advent calendar. I was really surprised at how much plastic was in their advent calendar. My flatmate Liv, she had the Candy Kitten advent calendar this year, and whilst I was buzzing about it and the sweets were great, they were wrapped in plastic when you'd open them. But I understand their point, which has been made, you know, throughout this impact report, which is that they haven't switched to non-plastic materials because they don't stay as fresh as long. Soon as they could put the little plastic pouch, it's then on the consumer to make sure that they recycled the plastic, which I obviously did, because I have a special little bag where I put all my plastics that I can go recycle at the supermarket at. I'd be interested to see what they do differently this December. Their other goal is they're looking to reduce the road miles their sweets travel by, which is really important as well, and that reduced the emissions, because like the more sweets that are on the truck, then the less trucks have to be out and less emissions are released from the transportation. I am going to briefly mention the rest of their impact report, because again, their impact report wasn't just about sustainability. It was a good decent proportion of it was, but they also had their impacts in terms of their local impact. So for example, through their Loves product, they donated 6k to a charity called the Albert Kennedy Trust to support young LGBTQ+ people suffering with homelessness or hostile living environments as a result of coming out or being outed, which is a really lovely organisation. I didn't know that charity existed. They donated 7,698 bags of Candy Kittens to food banks all across the UK, just over 1 tonne of sweets. They work closely with Fair Share, a charity with a mission to fight hunger in the UK, whilst also tackling the challenges of food waste. So that's a really lovely piece. Technically, that is also about sustainability, because food waste is one of the leading causes of emissions in the UK. And then their other one was they donated 6,250 bags to Asda's Tickled Pink charity through sales of an exclusive wild strawberry tickled pink pack. The charity supports the work of a leading breast cancer charity called Breast Cancer Now and Copperfield, who raise funds for better treatment, vital education and life-changing support. Those are really lovely impact reports, so I think it would be wrong to not include that in this podcast. So they mentioned quite a bit about culture, but I'll just briefly mention it. They say, culture is something we pride ourselves on at Candy Kittens. Did you know that we have a dedicated culture manager? Her role is to ensure we attract and retain the best talent in the industry, including ensuring our team are the happiest they can be. In 2023, we launched our placement program, bringing in the best university talent to the Candy Kittens team. We are excited to see this continue to bring the brightest minds to the sweetest business. And they had a 23% increase in overall happiness in the last year. So it's a really big thing for them. And I understand, because if your workforce isn't happy, it's not going to be as productive, it's not going to be as creative, and it will not be as innovative as it needs to be to bring sustainable solutions. So yeah, I think that's really, really lovely. They've launched their brand platform, which communicates what we stand for as a brand and serves as a guiding principle, a challenge to the industry to ditch the unnecessary nasty gelatine and make sweets better. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a pretty impressive impact report. A vegan brand, a corp brand, and just sort of leveled up their game in all aspects, including culture. I then went onto their About page, and this is where both product, brand and sustainability all come together. So they say, we make gourmet sweets with big flavour, honest ingredients and no nasties. No gelatine, no palm oil, no fake flavours. Instead, we've made a commitment to do good for people and our planet. We make irresistible sweets for plants. I have a range of 8 irresistible plant-powered flavours, packed with honest ingredients and the next level taste. From our OG wild strawberry and sour watermelon to our brand new Shocks Garment Sours, we have a wide range of fruity flavours, so there's something for everyone. We're on a mission challenging our industry to do better, challenging our industry who hide meat to ditch the gelatin and palm oil and do better. Which is really nice. It's holding their industry accountable. When they're talking about us, they talk about sustainability, the brand and the product. I'm now going to just go all in on the branding. We've arrived to the branding section. They outwardly position their brand as corp and plant-powered / vegan. Like, on their product you will see on the packaging at the top it will say powered by plants, which is positioning themselves, hey, just reminding everyone we're vegan. They're not hiding away from that, they're positioning themselves as vegan. I've seen their billboards and they've put 0% meat, 100% vegan. Again, calling out the industry, being like, just so you know, gelatin is meat. It's not obvious. Like, why do you think they've changed the name to gelatin from, pig's ligaments? Do you know what I mean? Or like beef cartilage. Do you know what I mean? They called it gelatin so people don't really think twice about what that actually means. And so they're sort of calling out, being like, hey, sweets are meat. Just because they don't look like dead meat doesn't mean it's not in there. And positioning themselves as we're the standout to that. We're the ones that don't do that. We're the difference in the industry. We're the ones taking a stand and making sure that these sweets don't do any harm. But they're not doing it in like a nasty way. They're putting horrible like images. They're just putting they're sticking to the same branding, the pretty feel, the bright colours, the like comforting writing, like sort of the bubble writing. It's just gentle branding, but with the statements. So it's still on brand. It's not making you feel guilty in terms of like the visuals of seeing meats being used in sweets. Instead it's saying, hey, just so you know, the sweets that you usually eat, they do have meat in them, ours don't, and they're really yummy. You know what I mean? It's like gentle parenting in that sense. So I think it's quite nicely done. And also, I mean, I'll talk more about it, but it's just sort of like, it's drawing attention to the issue in an accessible way. Also, they position their brand as for adults. These are sweets for adults. These are grown-up sweets. Bit more of a cooler feel to them, or more just like socially acceptable sweet to be eating in the office or to be bringing around to your friends' houses when you're a little bit older. Like also, like, you don't, whenever they've done any advertisement, you don't see any children eating them, and it's not like, oh, they've got alcohol in or anything. Like they're fine enough for children to consume, but they're not aimed at children. Like that's not their audience. Their audience is for adults who still want a sweet treat. Because of that, they can then target corporate businesses. Like they have this whole page where it's about corporate gifting, where your business can buy sweets from them in several different packs, like, or gift packs, you know what I mean, to either reward your team, or it's Christmas. The company that I work for, they're in our snack area, but you don't see any other sweets in that area either. It's just candy kittens, and then it's like protein bars and crisps and popcorn, but it's no other sweets, because it's like those are the adult sweets. If you saw a bag of Haribo, you'd be like, okay, because how many adverts have you seen of Haribos being eaten by children? Like, even when some of my favourite adverts were the Haribo ones, where they would eat the Haribos in the offices, but the voices would be children, and it's sort of still suggesting like you're a child at heart, and I get that, but it's also just like they're children's sweets, whereas that's not the approach candy kittens have taken. They've just left children out of it. Like, adults can have sweets too, and you don't need to feel bad about the fact that you're still a kid at heart or anything. It's just adults can have sweets too, and actually adults can have them at work as well. They appear like they're healthier because they have like no nasties in them, and they're gluten-free, and they're vegan, and vegan food is supposed to be better for your heart and your body generally. So perhaps that's also why adults feel okay about eating them and having them at work, because it's sort of like they're socially acceptable to eat because they're technically healthier sweets. Yeah, they're covered in sugar, but their ingredients don't contain any nasties that are bad for you. So I looked at their social media, primarily on TikTok. They do a lot of behind the scenes at the office, more just like, who are you? Like, what was your job previously before you worked here, or what's your favourite colour, what's your, like, it's more trying to personalise the people behind the brand, which again doesn't cost anything. Most of them don't do too well, but the ones that do well is when Jamie Lang comes in, and they're funny. Jamie's actually very funny. It's the sort of like office, the UK office, the US office like skit, where he kind of does a bit of a Michael Scott, and like makes everyone incredibly uncomfortable with his questions, but not in a like HR concerning way. But I feel like he would hate an HR. He would hate a Toby. Pull a new employee for a chat, and she was a data analyst, and he'd be like, so what do you do? And sort of thing, and like asking what she does, and she awkwardly tries to respond, and he's like, so yeah, that's like and like basically has no clue, like acts as if he has no clue what she's doing, which might be the case. Or then when she does answer, he's like, this is dull, this is tough. He's gone up to employees and been like, can you describe me in 3 words like you would describe a sweet? And then once they've done that, he'd give him a sweet, and if he didn't like it, he wouldn't give him a sweet. And he goes away on events as well when they do little like pop-ups. He's there, he's helping. More of a foundation without relying completely on Jamie Lang's popularity and fame, because I think that's what they did prior to 2018. I think that was sort of what they were dependent on. I'd give them a follow if you want to laugh. And I think that's the importance of TikTok and stuff, is like you buy into their social media. If you like them, you are more likely to buy the product because you think, oh, Jamie's really funny, or that social media post was hilarious, or those girls seem really nice. If you think the company's nice, you'll think the product's nice and be more willing to pay a little bit more for a bag of sweets because you know it's going to a good company. I feel like they could do some more PR. I think they should. I think an area where they're really missing out on, and they could tackle, is the running industry. So how many influencers in their 20s are running? Hands up if you've run. Hands up if you're having a midlife crisis and you're running. Hands up if you have bought running shoes a month ago and haven't run. Yeah, that's me. Anyway, my point is there's a market here that I think they could really target to get their brand up, because I have seen girls running and they'll have their little running vests on looking super cute, and then, I don't know, they're a couple K in and they're like, oh, I need a sugar burst, and they pull out a Percy Pig and they have a munch on that. And I'm like, well, that could be Candy Kittens. What are we talking about? Like, that could be Candy Kittens, like, your sweet treat on the way to crushing your dreams. Like, Candy Kittens sponsoring a athlete who's off to Tokyo to run a bloody marathon, and then that gets you out in Tokyo and that gets you on, because they'll post about the fact they're in Tokyo, and then suddenly you're reaching the Tokyo markets, the Japanese market, do you know what I mean? Japan, Woody, love Candy Kitten, love Hello Kitty. Crazy link. Anyway, but my point is, I just thought that would be such an easy win, and like, all you have to do is send 1 or 2 bags to like 1 million influencers. Well, not 1 million, but 1 or 2 bags to send to like 50 influencers, 100 influencers. Like, yeah, obviously that's an investment, but I think it's a bloody worthwhile one. And like, I mean, if you're getting Anna Archers to talk about Candy Kittens, what are we talking about? Like, that's surely the move. I just think that's, I thought about it the other day and I was like, yeah, facts. That's fact. Hi, Candy Kittens. Hey, if you're looking for social media, if you're looking for branding consultancy, hey. I just think it's just another way, like, they might not have thought about it. And also, they can then start talking about, if you've watched Game Changers, they talk about the impact on plant-based diets on your health, and how some of the strongest athletes in the world are plant-based, because it actually affects their blood flow and their overall performance is stronger. They also talk about the fact that gladiators were primarily vegetarian. Hey, what are we talking about? Hey, that's what, hey? So my point is as well, like, that's a whole other aspect that they could lean into, the health benefits of eating plant-based. And again, they're sweets, yeah, we get it, okay, but if you position them into healthy situations, for example, running for your quick sweet burst, where it's also not going to hinder your performance, actually it will enhance it, because vegan food increases your blood flow. That's an opportunity where we could be popping off. I just think I just think there's space there to delve into. Anyway, this has now entered into Ellie's branding consultation. But I also find it really fun, so I might keep doing this. Anyway, dive straight into TikTok Live Shop. TikTok Shop isn't great, but if it means getting more sustainably sourced products out and under people's noses, fine. And they do TikTok Live, where they're selling things live and reducing their price but selling them live and engaging with their community, engaging with a wider audience. And Gary Vee says it's the future of TikTok at the moment. He's seeing so many people are selling stuff live on TikTok, but he really believes that'll be a boom in that, and so it's interesting to see that they've started doing that pretty early on. So now, onto the product. So the reason why I look into the product is because I want to know, is it a strong enough product that people would still buy it regardless of it being sustainable or vegan or plant-based? Now let's actually talk about the product, and the product is the sweets. They have 8 ranges. I've had most of them and they slap. I am a big fan. They are juicy. So they have multiple different sweets and multiple different flavours, and I think that's good, because whilst one person might not like watermelon, that's okay, we've got strawberry, calm. I think it's important to just stick to 2 types of sweets in a sweet bag, because in terms of sustainability, because how many times have you had a bag of fruit pastels and you have not eaten the lime ones or the yellow ones, or which flavour you dislike the most, and thrown them away? But you really like the other 2, so that's why you continue to buy them. They did learn from it, and now a collection where there's just the strawberry and the blackcurrant, do you know what I mean? And they've learned, but they still have the other bags, and they're not as readily available as the fruit pastels with the 4 main flavours, whereas candy kittens, like, they're known as their strawberry ones, and the sour watermelon ones are like staples, and you either like them or don't like them. Packaging itself is really fun and engaging. It tells you straight away they're plant-based and they have no nasties, no palm oil. The design itself, like, it's pretty, it's fun colours, they're cool, they look cool, you're happy to have them like on your desk because they look pretty. But I also think they're usable in terms of their packaging because you can stand them up. So like they look good on your desk. Like, how many times I've had them on my desk like propped up and people could just put their hands in, whereas because it's got that thicker plastic, whereas like flimsy plastic, like they've ripped and like the bag's broken, you're less likely to like rip down the bag. You can just rip it at the top and then it's stood up and you're happy. It's almost like Pringles. Not quite as good, but also I think they're like, because the packaging's so like obviously candy kittens, like I think they're quite popular now and quite well known. Like, you see that packaging and you could say that's candy kittens. Like, I feel like it's quite a well-known brand based off its packaging. Like, even if you didn't know that it was no nasties, you'd know they were candy kittens. I think the other good thing about the product itself, like the sweets itself, is that whilst they say like no nasties, and typically they talk about it from a vegan perspective and no palm oil and no environmentally damaging ingredients, they also don't have gluten in them. I'm a gluten-free gal. I became gluten intolerant in 2017. I was 15, and so many sweets have wheat, at least wheat in them, flour. They use it to thicken and bind ingredients to make it sweet, and I was just like, oh, this is gutting, because when you're 15 you love sweets and whatever. But I remember mum and dad buying me candy kittens for the first time, and they were expensive, but as was everything that was gluten free at the time, so it was kind of like, yeah, it's part of the parcel. But they were so good, they were so nice, and like my friends knew always to buy me candy kittens because they knew I could have them, and that was from a gluten-free standpoint rather than just vegan. I wasn't even veggie at that time. My priority was gluten. So yeah, so it also reaches that demographic of people, because I really don't think there's enough justice for the gluten-free and celiac people of this world. It's such a fucking struggle to eat. Like, without fail, like I don't have to look at the back of the packaging to find out what ingredients. I just know I can eat those, and that's such a win for people who have allergies, because it's like the bane of their existence. I think it's good from an allergy point of view as well, and people again who aren't plant-based but are lactose intolerant, dairy intolerant, that reaches them as well. But it doesn't, like, so many like free from products either taste bad, coming from a girl that is very much free from dairy free, gluten free and veggie. I've had my fair test of of trying things, and like especially gluten-free stuff can taste really bad, and they don't taste bad, they taste actually really good. So it's a win, and like you're not annoyed to have to, you're not like someone who's gluten-free and wants to like share their food, you're kind of annoyed or embarrassed to do it because a lot of the time it doesn't taste nice, but this product does, and I think that's a win. Like, no one's like, oh fuck me, they're gluten-free. They're like, oh yeah, candy kittens, say less. I think they've nailed it really well. They look fun, they're fun for adults, and they taste good, and they hit all sorts of audiences. So my highlights of candy kittens. I really love that everyone in their team has sustainable objectives. I think that's really impressive. I love that they have a no nasties, all good manifesto. Again, that's uniting the team on their overall mission, and their overall mission is sustainability and making sure the impact on people and planet. I think that's lovely. And I love that they have a specific project at the moment looking into plastic alternative materials. And I love that they're Corp B certified and pretty highly ranked, and that they're pushing for more. I also love their social impacts with the LGBTQ+ community, the breast cancer, Copperfield organisation. I love their fair share donations as well. I think I'm also really impressed with their culture impact as well, and how they're constantly trying to improve that. I just think they're a really nice business. It was smart to go into an industry that didn't have constant new businesses popping up, like the main players in the game, like Haribo, Nestle, that kind of thing. Like, you don't often see new competitors in a responsible manner. So yeah, I think it was smart business. I think it's now good business. However, I think there's room to improve. I think they need to massively improve their supply chain transparency. And they say they do audits, but they don't say what they are. They just say that we make sure that our the people that we work with, they'll uphold our no nasties, all good manifesto or standards. And that sounds great. And on the surface, again, probably great, sounds great, but what does that actually mean? We know that your workers in the UK are paid above a living wage, but is that the case with your supply workers? Like, that kind of thing I think would be really interesting to know. There's been a big miss on here. Like, as much as they are really good on their palm, like they don't use palm oil, which is a devastating ingredient. It's one of the leading causes of deforestation in the world. That's amazing that they don't use that, and it's showing you that the industry doesn't have to use it. I love that. But they don't talk about sugar. Sugar is as water consumptive as cotton is in the fashion industry, if not worse. And it not only consumes a vast amount of water, it also pollutes it because of all the pesticides that have to be used. It's one of the most sought after crops in the world, so you can imagine it's one of the biggest crops in the world that is constantly devastating our environment. And they're obviously, it's a sweet company, so there's absolutely no mention of that. They mention nothing about water, and I appreciate early doors. They only just started getting into the plant-based game, but again, they like plant-based ingredients use a lot less water than meat ingredients, like gelatin. Like, where they, you know, no, Haribo doesn't talk about their water impact from gelatin. You know what I mean? Like, but it's definitely something that should be spoken about if they're trying to position themselves as a brand that's trying to do all good. That's one of the things that you should be thinking of, because sugar is devastating. So yeah, I think that could be worth looking into. But otherwise, like, I don't want to end on a sour note, no pun intended, but I just think that's something that I just think that's an obvious thing to be talking about. But when they're focused on the vegan stuff, I get why they possibly wouldn't. I just think water in all industries is just massively neglected, like in the fashion industry, but also in the food industry, and much less water is used in vegan products because you're not having to feed and water and hydrate animals to then kill them, to then use water to use the meat, to turn the meat into products that we eat. Do you know what I mean? Like gelatin, you know, so it cuts that whole bit. But sugar is a very highly water intensive crop, just as cotton is. So I think there's still room to talk about that. So that would be a goal of mine if I was having a chat to Candy Kittens. I would suggest maybe look into water, whether or not they have a head of sustainability. Now again, they're a really small company, but if you're positioning your brand as a vegan plant-based brand, like, do you have someone that's heading that? Is it just the CEO who's like, well, part of our brand is that we're voicing and championing sustainability, but who's doing that within your company? And then they say, and then I understand this is the really exciting part, that everyone in their team has a KPI of considering sustainability, and that's so sick. But like, is someone championing that who isn't the CEO? I don't know, I'd just be interested to know if they have like a head of sustainability. I think there's a missed opportunity to champion the benefits of sourcing plant-based ingredients. They were saying like, this is our carbon footprint. I think they need to be like, compared to a meat-based brand, this is like, we're much lower already. Like, I think that's what they've missed, that opportunity to shout about how great they are. So I think that's something that they could definitely talk about. Again, with the supply chain, how they say that they need to improve their scope 3 emissions. They mention again like nothing about it. I think you don't know which countries they're from, where are you sourcing your watermelon, you know? I'd like to ask them where they're sourcing and what their labour standards are. Interesting. So I looked into more of their business side. So Jamie Lang did an article. Primark offered them to have Candy Kittens in their stores, and they denied that because they didn't think it was on brand. So that's good. They turned over £8 million in 2022. Candy Kittens is now listed in every major UK supermarket, with its distribution growing 58% this year alone. His creative position and his personal branding influences his business. So he said, I've stayed very close to the brand. I'm the face of the brand. I'm the founder of the brand. So what I do on my own socials are important. Between personal and brand content helped create a cohesive narrative that resonated with consumers. His entertainment background has also influenced his approach. Being an entertainer made me approach things differently. I thought, okay, well, if I entertain people through sweets, then they're going to want to buy the sweets, then they're going to want to buy the sweets. We make sure that all things that I'm doing aren't going to step on the toes of Candy Kittens. Never working with any brands that would be a competitor, making sure the socials are fun and entertaining, making sure Candy Kitten videos are like that too. This approach suggests that brands should seek creators who are willing to commit to a long-term partnership and maintain brand consistency across their personal brand. The key is finding creators who can authentically integrate the brand into their existing content ecosystem rather than treating it as another sponsorship opportunity, which I think is really true. He says, I have something called a BHAG, a bag, which is a big, hairy, audacious goal, and I think everyone should have that. Something that is so extreme, like it's sort of out of reach, but if you have it, it means we're driving towards something, which is really cool. Combining authentic personal brand building and genuine product innovation and purpose-driven business practices, he's shown that social media influence can be transformed into a sustainable business success. Let's hit the 3 pillars. I think Candy Kittens are doing really well. To be the first Corp B company in your industry is a remarkable achievement. And they acknowledge that there's so much more to do, but to be in that position right now, phenomenal. Like they're turning over millions. Whether or not sustainability is a purchasing criteria if people buy them, regardless of that. Their branding positioning is strong, but I think they need to improve their marketing. This is my suggestion is to do a bit more PR. A 3-pillar analysis has worked, which is great. And so, yeah, I think that concludes this second episode. The second episode of Sustainable is the New Black. So exciting. I really enjoyed this episode. I hope you did too. If you did enjoy this podcast, please comment, say what you enjoyed. Whether or not you're a fan of the brand, whether or not you've ever had Candy Kittens, or whether this has made you want to go and look into them, go and buy one. Follow me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all at the same handle of Sustainable is the New Black. Email me any questions you have, or maybe any brands that you'd like me to look into. If you're a sustainable brand, maybe contact me. Not to sound like direct CEO or anything, but the more interaction I get on these podcasts and the more interaction I have on social media and the more views I get and more streams I get, the more likely it is that maybe down the line I'll actually be able to go and speak to some companies and some CEOs who are running these successful sustainable businesses and actually hear from them directly, which would be so cool. But yeah, thank you once again for listening. This has been Sustainable is the New Black. I'm Ellie, and I'm out. Bye!